What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Virzi Effect Podcast Show. My name is Paul Virzi, and you guys are listening to episode 594. Thank all you guys for who's buying tickets right now, and thank you for the people that bought tickets to the Gramercy Theater. December 31st, that's right, New Year's Eve, Gramercy Theater. I can't wait. It's the first time I'm doing New Year's Eve in New York City. Have a bunch of dates coming up too. Philadelphia, Helium, October 20th, 21st, and November 2nd, I'll be at the Funny Bone in Albany. Got a bunch of dates coming up. We'll get into all that at the end. But first, I want to talk to somebody that I would say is like, if I come into LA now, I almost just have to jump on a show with you, or I want to be on a show with you. And it happened at the Improv, which was so great. Maz Jobrani, Mazzy.
My brother, how are you, man? Good to see you, man.
The best. We worked together the other night. We had a great conversation. It seems like every time I come to LA, we cross paths, which I want to keep happening. But we were just talking. We're going to get into this.
Yeah.
We're going to get into this. And Maz is one of the best, dude. And I got to tell you, I was at the Improv, and I'm going like second to last, so I'm waiting there. Luckily, I was smoking a cigar outside by myself. He walked up. We had a great talk.
Yeah.
And then I'm waiting to go next, and I'm just watching this absolute master pro control the room. It got me excited for my set because I was like, oh, see, this is what vets do.
Yeah.
Like, this is what it is. And it was so great. But we were just talking about how you were saying that they're saying the worst comments that we're talking about comments that comedians get on YouTube, the nasty shit the trolls say, all that stuff. And, I was talking about how I'm done replying, even though it can get personal.
Yeah.
And you actually said that TikTok, is the worst?
Yeah, TikTok's really, first of all, right back at you with the love. And I know that you and I met in Nashville. We did I would do the early shows, you would do the late shows.
Yes.
Co-headlining in Nashville at Zany's, which was great. We had a great chance to hang out.
And then we watched UFC.
We watched the UFC together, and then we also have all these friends in common. The Brett Ernst of the world,
yes.
Obviously all things comedy guys and everything. So it's great. Mad respect right back at you.
Yeah.
Now we were talking about comments, and I was saying, when I go, I've had so many iterations of this, and I think that like if you went to therapy, you probably could get to some resolution on some of this stuff. Why are comics? I mean, everybody, when you get a negative comment, it's going to upset you. But there are some people who are really good at saying, it doesn't faze me at all. Like I don't know if you saw that clip of Deion Sanders going around where he's so great. He's like, why would your opinion of me matter? He goes, your opinion of me didn't get me to where I am.
Yeah, no, he said, what about me makes you think that I care what you think of me?
Exactly.
He goes, and it's true.
And he goes, I've been the guy. He goes, I was the game changer and all that. So I was like, whoa. And I was like, that's the mentality you got to have. Is because at the end of the day, when you've done this 5, 10, 15, for my case now 25 years, you get good at it. Hopefully you get pretty good at it, and you should. It's almost like if I were to be walking down the street and I were a good basketball player and I saw a pickup game, I should feel confident getting into that game and go, I got this. I'll be able to play no matter what because of what I've done.
Right.
So what happens once in a while, though, you read the comments and you're like, and you want to be like, this motherfucker, like it pisses you. It still gets under your skin, even though, whoever it is, Joe_Schmo has 0 followers or 2 and so this guy's a troll automatically. Or if he's got a lot of followers and doesn't like you, why should that person's opinion matter? And by the way, I get in my head a lot. Like I go, because I got fans from all over the different places, as do you. You got some fans that are your podcast fans. Some fans know you from, a comedy show. People know you from different places.
Right.
So I'll have some people that I'll be like, these motherfuckers. I'm like, the demographic, like I'm Iranian American, right? So there's a lot of Iranians from Iran who follow me on Instagram. Now their sense of humor is going to be different than mine. Number one, because they don't speak the English language that well. Number two, they may have grown up in a culture that's a little more formal, and I'm up there saying like motherfucker this, motherfucker that. So maybe they're like, oh my God, whatever. Yeah. And so I end up sometimes judging, like in my own head, like as I'm like, sometimes I don't know if you do this, as I'm like in bed rolling around, I'll be thinking like, God, these people are frustrated with their comments and the posts and this and that. And then I go, wait a minute. The only reason I know about the negative comments is because they are the ones who have decided to go out and do that because you have, for every one negative comment, you probably have 99 people who are fans of yours, and they're like, I love you. And that's sometimes, it's so weird because I've gotten to this place where I get shocked sometimes. I get surprised when someone goes, I love you, I watch you all the time. And I'm like, oh, a friendly comment.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's an interesting thing because you're right. If you look at the amount of likes and you look at the amount of positive, it's so silly for us to worry about the 5% or 3% that do it. But what it is they know how to say certain things. And here's the other thing that I think is true too. Sometimes the negative comment's true. And and that's what can hurt.
Yeah.
Even if it's something like, man, Virzi, man, you're Italian, and I know you got to move, but you're moving so much. And then I'll watch the clip, and I'm like, man, I am pacing a lot.
So let me put a little step on it because I got that too. Somebody actually, so just like you, I had a special come out of like, I don't know, earlier this year, and then I was doing a gig in Australia. I told you about this. I hadn't been in Australia in 4 years. And I went back to Australia, I did the gig, and a fan was at the show. It felt like it was great, but she messaged me the next day. She goes, I'm a huge fan, and she was very respectful. She goes, but the material seemed repetitive. And I realized, oh, shit, we put a lot of this stuff now online, and if you look at...
Oh, right.
Yeah, and if you look at your special, and if it's gotten like, 100,000 views, 100,000 of your close fans, the close fans have probably watched it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I realized, oh my God, I got to write new stuff. So I'm writing new stuff. And in writing new stuff, do you know who Sean Polofsky is?
No.
Sean Polofsky is great. She's a friend of mine. She's a very funny comedian, and she's a Comedy Store regular from back in the day. She does a show called Social Media Meltdowns, which is a lot of fun. Everyone's got some iteration of this. You go up and you read some social media thing that happened either between you and somebody or someone hit you or something. And I had this really funny thing happen to me. I'd done this joke a long time ago. This was actually an interesting one. I was in Times Square. I was doing Caroline's. And I had there's a comedian named Steve Wilson who did a guest spot on the show. And he leaves. And we're with 250 people. It's a packed night, rocking and rolling. He comes back 10 minutes later. What's up, dude? I couldn't leave. There's some kind of terrorist thing going on in Times Square. What? Yeah, I don't know what it is. Oh, okay. Come to find out the next day, this was when there was a dude who tried to do a car bomb in the middle of Times Square. It must have been like 2007, 2008. He was trying to be part of the Pakistani Taliban. So, and the car bomb didn't go off. They figured it out.
They caught it. Yeah, I think I remember this.
Yeah. And so I used to do a joke about. So I started doing a joke about I was like, why would the Pakistani Taliban take credit for failed car bombing? Like, why would you call a press conference be like, we would just like to say, we tried, and furthermore, win some, lose some, and and I forget what the third part was, but I do it, and I do like little Pakistani Indian accent. I don't even. So I wake up one day to some dude who's lost his shit. He's tweeted at me like 6 or 7 tweets, being like, "How dare you do this Pakistani? That's not the right accent. You're trying to do Baluchi. We're not Baluchi. We're not Baluchi. We're Pashto." He's going on, but it's funny because he gets more and more heated, and he's basically arguing with himself. And so I've done it at Social Media Meltdown, and it's just funny. I just read it.
Oh, that's funny.
And it's great. So now, as part of my new set that I'm putting together, I'm going to the screen and showing some of these comments and reading it and commenting on the comments. So it's become a thing. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And that actually helps dissolve some of the negativity because it makes me have fun with it.
Yeah.
And also realizing, like you said, so somebody wrote to me and they said exactly that. They go, Maz, you move around stage too much. You're making me nervous. Is there anything you can do about it? Which I thought was funny. I'm like, wait a minute, so you want me to stop moving around because it makes you nervous?
Yeah.
Which is so stupid. And all that to say,
that's great.
Who are they?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like when Seinfeld did the documentary Comedian, he made a funny comment. He goes, I'm an expert, but I have to come in front of you people who've never written a joke, and I got to try it out to see if you guys think it's the right thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So who are they to tell you to stop moving? You should move. Chris Rock moves on stage. There's something to it.
That's like, if you look at my first special, I'll say this. If you look at Nocturnal, I'm just a pacer. I move. When I talk sports with my friends, I move. It's just, I don't know if it's the Italian Greek thing. I have to move.
Yeah.
And when somebody says that, I'm like, you never want to make them change, that. But it sometimes I'm like, I wonder if they say things like repetitive, then sometimes we can, because sometimes people, and they don't realize it, sometimes they don't hate, but
Right.
they're saying something that you think is hate, but they could be like, hey, I like you, but just so you know.
Yeah.
And you don't know if they're trying to help, and then it gets in your head. But I'm really excited to have you on the show this week because, and a lot of my fans can really kind of relate to this, and a lot of my fans talk mental health and deal with mental health,
Yeah.
and I think they're fans of me because of my mental health. Now, Maz and I had a really amazing discussion about our lives and our families. I'm not going to give them that.
No, yeah.
But we had a deep thing.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about you and your life,
Yeah.
trauma and pain.
Yeah.
And you learned a lot about my life and trauma and pain. Yet people say the same thing about you and I, which is very, very interesting to me, where it's like, Bartnick, we just ran into our friend Joe Bartnick. He was on the show last week, and he says, you and Maz are the same. You guys are kind of similar type people.
Right.
And knowing the stuff that you went through, and you kind of knowing some of the things that I went through and some of the things, yet we're like, people talk about us as these positive things. And I wonder what makes people, because there are people the other way.
Yeah.
Right? There
Yeah.
are people that have trauma,
Yeah.
but they're not loving.
Yeah.
And they're not positive.
Yeah.
And they don't want to have this feeling that
They
we
shut down. They're shut down. I think there's a fear. Like I was just talking to my nephew about this. I said, God, if I could go back to college, I would either want to study law, simply because I'm watching all these like lawyers on TV now and breaking things down, and I'm going, God, I wish I knew all the knowledge they had, or I would want to study psychology.
That me too.
Because I think it's so interesting for ourselves and to understand others. I talk to my kids all the time. I go, like my son, I got to tell you, I'm so proud of him. He's 15 years old now. I've tried to drill into him the idea of like, sometimes it's not you. When someone's getting angry at you, it's not you. They're having a thing.
Yeah.
So you got to step away from it. I go, you just got to step away. You got to find a way, diplomatic way to get it out, and just let them deal with it. And whether it takes an hour or a day or a week, you come back to that, and then they're like, I'm so sorry, whatever. So I think that some people, unfortunately, have had such hardships in their lives, and whatever that was, it shut them down. It made them bitter, made them angry, made them vengeful. You hear about people who will say things like, you know, I never had anything when I was young, so why should I want I had to work for mine. Why should I want to give it to these people that want, you know, free college? Like, what's that? Like, I worked hard. They should work hard. I get it. I totally get it. You went through some stuff. Now you have a choice. You went through that stuff. You can either say others need to go through that same thing, or you could turn around and go, God, I went through that stuff.
I hope somebody else doesn't.
I hope somebody else, maybe I'll set up a scholarship to help people not have to go through that stuff. So for me, for example.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, like for me, like for example, my father, I say this, my dad was an amazing father, but he wasn't the best husband. And the culture he came up with back in Iran, back in the 50s, 60s, you know, like, hitting your wife was accepted. It was an accepted thing. And I mean, you know, we see it now as well. But what it did to me was it made me hate violence. So I remember, like, if I really had to, like, analyze myself, I would say, I remember being in school, and when two kids would get in a fight, I would jump in the middle and break it up.
Wow.
And it wasn't until I was older when I was like, oh, wow, I could get, you know, when people were so much bigger, I go, I shouldn't necessarily jump in the middle of something that I don't know anything about. But I've always been, because of that, and I've always been, like, very sensitive to that, very sensitive to any kind of like violence to women. It really upsets me. My son is older, my daughter's younger, and I think I saw my son like maybe like pat my daughter, like he got mad at her and he did something to her. I forget what it was. He didn't like hit her. It might have been like a
Just
little,
give her like a pat.
yeah, like one of those things. And this was when we all went to Italy with the family, and we had the trip was longer than expected, and my wife was in a bad mood because we weren't upgraded and all this other stuff. So she's going through something. I'm trying to juggle everything, and I see him do something to my daughter, and I felt so bad because I went over and I kind of like grabbed my son. Again, I've never hit my kids, but I grabbed my son. I kind of shook him a little bit, and this poor kid, he started to tear up.
Oh boy!
And Paulie, it melted my heart. I felt so bad, and I like as soon as I calmed down, like 5 seconds later, I hugged him.
You're just hugging him, kiss him. I'm sorry.
I said, buddy, I didn't mean to do that, but I go, I really want you to realize, like, don't ever hit your sister. Don't ever raise your hand. It's just so. I've decided to break the cycle, but there are those that will continue the cycle.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, one thing that I said, and that's amazing, by the way, and I agree with that 100%. That's very interesting, and it is. It's a lot of times it's a projection that you need to step away from. But one thing that I always tell my son, and I think anybody, somebody said it's one of the greatest parenting things that they said that I've ever said. So if I can give that to somebody, then I'll give it to them. But what I said was this, okay? I called my son aside, and I just said, just remember something. You're older and your sister loves you, right? I said, and I think this goes for a lot of older brothers and siblings that have issues, right?
Yeah.
And not that they have issues, but I'm just saying there's sibling rivalry or sibling fights. That's what it is in life.
Yeah.
But I said, always remember this. I said, if your sister loves, and this goes for anybody with a sister, if your sister loves you and looks up to you and you're her world, if you tell her to shut up and you call her a bitch and you do anything like that, then if she loves you the most and you're doing that, then you don't think she's going to let a boyfriend do that?
Right.
So now it's okay for her because she loves you. Now she's going to love a boyfriend. That boyfriend could call her a bitch and tell her to shut up. I said, then what are you going to do? Because I'll kill him. So you better be the one because I'm going to get older.
Yeah.
And it made him,
That's
and
great.
it made him, and it was like, you got to understand, if they feel that that's okay with somebody they love, then it's going to be okay later. And I said, and it's not. And those are people that are in abusive things.
Yeah.
Those are people that have been, and it was a little heavy to tell my young son, which is funny.
Yeah,
because
I know you're 5.
Listen, I know you can't stand yet. Hold them up. Hold them up. No, but and I was like, you got to understand that she'll go out there in life. And it's like really, one cool thing was, I remember, I don't know if you're a big sports fan or remember, but 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, the Buccaneers with Brady played Drew Brees.
Yeah.
And they're in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you see, when it's all empty, you see Brady come out and talk to Drew.
Yeah.
And they're in street clothes.
Yeah.
And Drew's boys are there.
Yeah.
And they love Brady, so Brady throws Drew's. And when Brady's leaving, the one thing he says, he yells across. You can look at it on YouTube. He goes, "Hey, be nice to your sister."
Oh, that's great.
And I was wondering, that was the one thing that he wanted. Hey guys, and be nice to your sister. It's so important because, just with everything, a woman shouldn't be catcalled and disrespected, and if you see them laugh it off. Now listen, obviously if you got a good sense of humor and it's a light thing, hey, even as a joke. But I'm talking about really getting disrespected.
Yeah, you got to lay the groundwork. You're absolutely right, and I think a lot of the ways we treat ourselves comes from the way we were treated by those that we loved. That's very true.
Yeah, right.
And it's funny because I realized at some point that I'm a pleaser, right? And so I realized that part of my culture and part of my upbringing from my father, I was the oldest son, so there was a lot of you need to take care of stuff. You need to take care of your brothers. You need to make sure shit happens.
Yeah.
And it's just making sure shit happens. And so what that leads to, and also culturally speaking, is very much similar to the Italian, the Greeks. It's respect your elders. They want something, you do it. So it's interesting because I got into this business, and all of a sudden, I would get people contacting me. Hey, we're having an event. Can you come do it? Sure. Can you do this? Sure. Yes. You don't want to disappoint anybody. You want to please everybody. And then there was a moment of realizing, oh wow, I'm doing this at the detriment of myself. Meaning what? If I'm not doing all these events, I might have more time to spend with my wife or my kids or on myself. You understand what I'm saying? So there's all this stuff comes from the way we were raised, and that's how you act. And you're absolutely right with your daughter and with your son. It's you need to instill in them, have respect, self-respect, right? And respect each other so that when they go into the world, they don't just sit there and take shit from whoever, their boss, their boyfriend, their husband, their wife, whatever it is.
And you know what? You make a good point. It's the flip side too. So it's like telling my daughter, or telling the daughter, hey, your brother loves you and he protects you. You can't talk down at him and make him feel disrespected either, because then he can go out into the world and allow a woman to do that to him. So it's all about it's that's what one of the saddest things in the world is when you find out that somebody was molested and then they do it. Yeah. That's, to me, I don't think, talk about breaking a cycle. But that is one of the, I know it's a horrible thing. I know it's a comedy podcast. Maz Jobrani, everybody. No, but it's one of those things where you're you gotta break it. So when you saw your son give your daughter a pat, in your mind, you're that's stopping right the fuck now because I saw it and it's not gonna happen. Yeah. And it's a good thing, but that just means you're a good parent. Because other parents would be some parents let him be tough. It's no. You can do it. That. Yeah. No, you can't.
Although I would love for my daughter to learn self-defense. I actually got, you have these fantasies in your mind, and ultimately your kid will decide what they want to do. But I had a guy pick me up one time. I think I was in Amsterdam, and he was taking me from the hotel. He was the driver from a hotel to the train station or wherever I was going to the airport. And the dude was you could tell he'd worked out. It was 8 in the morning. He's already worked out. And I was like, oh, where are you coming from? He's like, oh, I do kickboxing, this and that is my thing. He goes, and I enrolled my 2 daughters. He goes, no one's going to fuck with my daughters. I was like, damn. And myself, I go, sign them up for kickboxing as soon as I go back. Of course, I tell my daughter, she's like, nah, I'm good. I'm just going to listen to music.
Yeah, I know. It would be great. I feel like that's something they got to want, right?
Yeah.
Like jiu-jitsu and all that stuff, like for them to like really want to get into that, I feel like they got to watch it and say, hey, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Instead of just bring them.
Yeah.
But no, you'd want your kids to be able to throw a punch.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think some people are wired to get into something expertly and really put in the time and really go for it. And most people, I think, are wired to not do that. Like me, what I mean by that is, like, I don't know about you, I tried the piano, I tried, tennis, I tried a little bit of everything, gymnastics, I was doing everything, and very few things like I stuck with. But then you see these kids who are like, whether it's their parent who was tiger momming it, or it was them, they were like, I wanted to learn the guitar, and then I would spend 8 hours a day, and now I got a rock band, and now I'm whoever it is. So I feel like there's a certain brain type that can do that, who, like you were saying, like at a young age will be like jiu-jitsu. You know, like they got to really, like I took karate, and as soon as we stopped punching the air and they were like, now punch each other, I was like, oh, this shit hurts. So I was like, I'm good. I was out.
Can I do a private lesson?
Yeah. I was like, I'd rather just shadow box and shit. I really don't want to get in a fight.
But that kind of goes full circle to what we're talking about with the trauma and then being similar type of people. But it's funny how, like, what we do is we love to give joy.
Yeah.
And we love to give laughter. And it's a skill and a talent. And it's also, it was probably a defense mechanism back in the day. And then all of a sudden you hone this thing and you realize, oh, this is an art where you could get like really, really good at it.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to be able to grab a mic anywhere and be able to do it.
Yeah, it really, like, I tell my kids, again, going back to the whole thing of like finding what you love, and anyone who's listening to this might have things that's on their minds and they didn't do it. So I found being on stage I loved it. Like at 12, I got on stage when I was a kid. I was a big fan of Eddie Murphy's. We had the musical. There you go. So we had the musical at school, and I went an audition. I was like, I love this. I'm alive on stage. And I wanted to do it. My parents kept pushing me to go do something practical, be a lawyer or something like that. And I tell my kids, I go, listen, in my life, there's been a handful of things I've done that I really stuck with. And really it comes down to, like, it's not like, what's driving you? Like I realized, for me, like, listen, when you're in school, it helps because you have an assignment, you have deadlines, right? When you're out of school, when you're out of everything, if you don't have deadlines, if you and I were just artists, if I were just a painter, I might never get a painting done because I'd just be like, yeah, I'm working on it, I'll get there, I don't know. But you really have to have deadlines, right? You got to be like, oh, someone has now paid me $10,000 to do the painting, I got to get it done, right? Deadlines get us there. So, throughout my life, the few things that I've really stuck with that I didn't have to, but I did, was soccer. Number one, played soccer growing up, still play pickup, get up in the morning, go do it. It's fun. I feel great about it. Still scrutinize myself. I should have played better. I should have done this. Yeah. It keeps me sore all the time. The second thing was in college, I studied abroad in Italy. So I learned Italian in college, and then I went for a year toItaly. And again, I put my mind to it.
Well, you speak Italian now?
I used to be very fluent.
Okay.
Like I used to write papers in it.
Wow.
And then last summer when we went with my family, it was funny because there was a lot of like, come si dice, which is how do you say, right?
Yeah.
So, but I was walking around and trying to show off with the kids and my wife. They were like, I got this. So, and I did pretty well.
Yeah.
And the third thing was comedy. Comedy, like from the beginning when I first started, they said, get on stage as much as you can, write as much as you can. So I wouldn't like blink twice. If somebody said, oh, we're doing a gig on a rooftop and you do it in front of one person, I was like, all right, I'll try, why not? Let's do it. Coming out of the pandemic, I did a show in a parking lot somewhere. I thought, like, I showed up and this lady that had booked me, she'd said it's a theater. And so it turns out her friend has a Irish store that sells Irish paraphernalia, like posters of Irish movies, and she was weird. And then this guy's taken the store and he's turned the second half of the store into he built it like a 6-inch high stage on the second half of the store, and he would put like chairs in front of that stage.
I love how you say he built a 6-inch.
Yeah, basically, that's what it was. There was no stage there, so it was horrible, and it was funny. So this was this guy's stage,
Yeah.
And that night when I show up, she had set up chairs it was a mini mall. There was like 8 chairs set up, and in the corner of the mini mall there was a microphone with a little amplifier, and they were doing a show. And she's like, normally we do it inside, but it was too crowded or something, so we did it outside. So I literally was doing stand-up coming out of the pandemic in a parking lot, and there was no hesitation,
Right?
Because this is what I love doing. Like you said, there's a microphone. I'm doing this, and I'm going to live stream it so my fan base that I have on my Instagram can see the kind of shit we do.
Right.
And I'm having fun with it. So I'm like, I'm doing the thing, and I'm like, why are you outside in a strip mall? I'm doing crowd work. I'm like, why are you in a strip mall?
Yeah.
In a folded chair watching stand up? How'd you end up here? Are you homeless? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah.
But that's the only other thing I've stuck it out with. Do you have any other talents besides stand up?
No, I mean, I used to love to. Well, I love to play ball. Like I'm an athlete. Like I love to play pickup basketball. Like, there's really no pickup football games, but I had a good arm, so I love to throw and do that. But that was I'm 5'8", and that, you know what I mean. Like I'm not going anywhere with that with sports. And then you get older.
Did you play in high school?
I played. Well, my mom moved. When we moved, I was sick.
Oh, yeah,
and I was like, I don't know these kids. I don't like these kids. I was like, it was like a tough. Then that's when I started hanging with older kids. Remember we talked? I started hanging out with older kids because of the move and to get in and get popular. So like after that, like sports kind of took a back seat. And I was kind of the kid, like some of my closest friends were always older. Taking me around. It was like that. But the one thing was the laughing, or let Paul tell that story. Watch Paulie tell that story. Or watch Paul do Eddie Murphy from Beverly Hills Cop or 48 Hours. Like I would. So that's kind of what people.
And how old were you when you first got on stage?
21. I did an open mic in Woodstock, New York, at a place called Joyous Lake, which a lot of bands would practice in before the Woodstock. But it's kind of funny what you said. It's like you said to the people listening, and you're right. And some of my fans hit me up and go, Paul, man, because of you, I just did that open mic, or I just did it, and I'm like, great. I feel like it's the first. If there's something in your heart, and there's something you want to do, it's the first barrier is the hardest. So the first wall to climb with the rope it's gigantic. And you're looking at it, and it's scary, and it looks so easy to go, fuck that wall. It's just too much. But if for whatever reason you do and you get over that, I believe the walls get lower and lower until it's an easy hurdle, and then it's common. And that's the thing. So anybody who wants to do something, whether it's even if somebody's like, you know what, man, my dream was always to be like a portrait painter. I want to paint. I want to make portraits. And like going to the store and getting a canvas, getting all the brushes and getting all the colors, and just even if you just fuck around, and all of a sudden, if you stick with that, even if it's 6 months later or a year later, you kind of make your first good portrait, and you just keep going. It's like you're doing something, and you could also sleep.
And also, it's realizing that you're going to die at some point. So if you don't do it, you didn't do it. Right? So it's like, for me, like I just was telling, I've been wanting to run a marathon. I've run a half marathon, never run a full marathon. So I'm gonna go online and see if you have to qualify, you just sign up. Just sign up for the LA Marathon, and then that's the first step. And then find run clubs that get you ready, and then start doing it, and just be able to say, I've done a marathon.
Now that's a 26 mile?
Yeah.
And you're doing it?
I'm gonna do it.
You're going to do it?
I'm going to do it because I have it, because I've had injuries.
Well, you're in shape,
and shit.
Man. You're in shape.
I'm in decent shape. It's so funny you say that, because I go on jogs. I'll jog for between 3 to 5 miles, 30 minutes or so. And I was at dinner with my wife and kids, and we were talking about the things I do and this and that or whatever. We were just talking. And I go, I'm a runner. And then I keep going. I don't even stop. And they're like, you're not a runner. I go, what do you mean I'm not a runner? I go, run. They go, you don't run. I go, where do you think I'm going in my shorts? And like, what do you think I'm going? Like, I'm going like I'm Richard Simmons. I'm doing yoga, aerobics. Where am I going? I go, I run. I run 3 to 5 miles. They're like, yeah, that's not a runner. I go, how about you? Let's see you run, motherfucker. I go, I run 3 to 5. I got the running shoes. I do it. I'm not doing some of these guys doing crazy numbers, but I do it and I like it. And obviously as we get older, it aches and pains and stuff. But that's something I've wanted to do. I keep saying I want to do it. I'm just going to have to do it. I just got to do it.
And I think however that ends up, you're going to be able to, like, that's what I was saying, like sleep at night, right?
Yeah.
Like if I never did stand up, if my buddy never called me up and never was like, hey, there's a Tuesday open mic in Woodstock, New York, and you just sign your name. If I never did that, if I never actually took that step, I mean, I don't know. I'd probably be a funny, nice salesman. I'd be a funny, nice guy salesman, and I'd probably be making, but like, I also didn't have it in me to like not be me. And like, I feel blessed. I feel blessed that I'm able to do what I do, man. I really do. Like, I feel at the end of the day, no matter what, when we hang it up, right? When we hang it up and we're done and we're hopefully retired and healthy and with family and all that stuff, you look back and you just go, man, like I did something that I put my mind to, as opposed to not doing it. And it's well, you were talking about running like that. That when you talk to people, like there are people that are motivated to a level like that. Do you ever see that David Goggins guy?
Yeah, that's
I mean, running 100 miles.
Well,
somebody asked him how long you've run. One time he's like, I ran 200 miles straight. And like it's like that's like, I mean,
his brain is wired differently. So
that's a different person.
My son was even saying, I guess he was watching him on TikTok, and he goes, the guy basically says, "Fuck your motivation," meaning like it's not about motivation, it's about just going. And so that guy. Even a guy like Rogan, when I listen to Rogan or anybody in that world, there's martial arts and all that stuff, they're a lot more motivated than I am. Like I be honest with you, once in a while when I listen to Joe, I get motivated because he'll start talking about exercising, working out, and he'll be like, you got to do weights as you get older, because if you don't do weights,
your muscles die and stuff.
And I was like, oh God, I got to do weights. So now I'm doing lunges, I'm doing all this shit, and in all honesty, I'm not at all like, I'm not the kind of guy. I don't have the patience to sit there and read and find out if I'm doing it right. I just do what I think is right. But the level that those guys are at, their brain is wired. You ever see that guy Free Solo? You ever see that documentary? The guy the guy who climbed up the El Capitan in Yosemite without any ropes. So they did a scan of his brain, and he doesn't have the amygdala that in our brain we have the fear factor. He doesn't have that. So there's a big difference.
Dude, that's wild.
So people are wired differently. There are people who will. Like you said, they'll,
Could you imagine, it made me laugh when you said that, because it just makes me think of like, what if there was a comic without that?
Oh, yeah.
But then they'd probably just be canceled.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, if they didn't have the fear thing, they would be like, it was a good 2-day run.
Yeah.
That's
kind of like Brian Holtzman is a little bit of that. You know Brian Holtzman?
Yeah. That guy's wild,
I love Brian. But it's funny because when you get Brian off the stage and talk to him, he's a very smart and very sweet guy. But the persona on stage, if you have an ounce of being offended in you, you're going to be offended. But if you get the fact that that some of the stuff he says, he's pushing the envelope to be funny about it, then he's brilliant. And he's somebody who I would say is close to that. Like sometimes I watch, I go, I could never say that. Like the things he's saying up there.
Yeah. Sometimes it's so free when you see that. And if you could do a joke, and I feel like this new hour I'm doing is the most edgy, but I still, I still want to, and this is nothing against anybody who has they're like a persona.
Yeah.
But I can't not be me, because when I first started, my defense mechanism was like angry.
Oh yeah.
Like, what's the deal with this? And it was that was how I was afraid.
Yeah.
I was afraid, so I would just be like this aggressive kind of yelling. But then I remember my roommate was like, "Dude, that's not you."
Yeah.
And I'm like, it takes a long time to become you.
Well, comedy obviously, like it takes you got to go 5-10 times a week. Go 5 to 10 years. It's therapy. It's finding out who you are. It's getting rid of that persona and being like, I would say this off stage. A lot of times the things you write on stage come from off stage, from a conversation you're having with somebody. You go, this, that, the other. And you go, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? And then you bring it on stage. What you were just talking about being free. I just a couple times, just for fun, I was trying to do like a character on stage, just like, So I'd come up with this character named Dusseldorf, and he was just like this, maybe he's gay, maybe he's not, he's German, and he's just up there, just Dusseldorf. And I would go up there without any material. And it was funny because I had done Mo Better Mondays. You ever done Mo Better Mondays?
No.
Mo Better Mondays is like the black comedy night at the Improv. Now, just backing up for a second, I'd also done Chocolate Sundays. That's a black comedy night at the Laugh Factory.
I came up in rooms like that in New York City.
Yeah, so this was years and years ago. So I did Chocolate Sundays, and the crowd was great, and I had a fun time. As I'm coming off, there's a lady named Thea Vidal, who I overheard her talking. She goes, "Wow, this crowd's so much better than the crowds at Mo Better Monday." And I'm like, "Oh, how bad? Like, how different could it be?" And then I'd been booked to go do Mo Better Mondays, and my buddy Sam Tripoli, he's like, "Hey, I'm going to come down and support you." at the Improv. And I was like, support me. Like, what are you talking? Like, how bad is this thing? So they throw me up first.
What am I getting jumped if I'm not funny?
I know.
Yeah.
So they throw me up first on Mo Better Mondays. Like, I don't even know if and this is, I think I must have already done Friday After Next, which was a movie that did well in the black community. But maybe my stand-up, I was probably like 3-4 years into stand-up, so I wasn't like fully developed yet. You didn't have
the chops yet. Yeah.
Yeah, so I go up, and I just remember, like, it wasn't even like, they don't set you up for success. Maybe now it's changed, but I think back then it wasn't like, let the host go up, and now it's my show, let me get these people warmed up and be like, oh, we got a special guest, this, that, you got to give them some, it wasn't, I feel it was a little bit of like, oh, we got this new comic, come on up, Maz Jobrani, whatever, nobody knows who I am, and I'm doing my stuff, and it's not hitting, and it's like 5 minutes of pretty quiet, and it's like, all right, thank you, good night. I'm walking off and go like, God, I think I sweat up a storm in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
God, what a horrible time. Now flash forward to, I'm thinking to myself, I hope nobody saw me. I mean, it was packed. The room was packed. But I go, I hope these people never I hope I don't cross paths with these people again. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to. They just saw me die at death.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it was. A few months later or whatever, a little while later, I'm doing Dusseldorf at the Comedy Store, and I'm probably like the last set of the night, like 1:45 in the morning or 1:30, really late. And I go, you know what? It's so late. I'm just gonna. Yeah, there's 2 hot girls in the corner. There's like a handful of people here, nobody else. And as Dusseldorf, I wouldn't go up doing jokes. I would go up like doing silly stuff. So I would just basically for 15 minutes, I was going to improvise.
Wow.
So I'd go up as Dusseldorf, and the whole point was like a lot of trying to be a Seinfeld almost. I'd be like, I was just looking around the room. I was like, look at that. There's an exit sign right there. Why is the exit sign? It's green. It like to me that's saying like exit, like go. It should be red so you don't go. Like why do they want you to go? What's up with that? And like I was just doing like that, and then I got someone's in the front. I'd be like, why are you here at this time of night? What's up with it? It was just
that's
just
funny.
going. I'm having a good time. Some people are laughing. It's silly. And these 2 girls, the 2 hot girls over there, are like talking. And I go, hey, girls, excuse me. I'm trying to do a show here. I came all the way from Dusseldorf. My name is Dusseldorf. How are you today? Why do you guys are kind of cute. What's your name? What's your deal? And they're like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, are you at the comedy show to watch or to talk? Because you could take the conversation elsewhere. So I'm having a back and forth with them. And then one of them goes, wait a minute. Aren't you that guy from Mo Better Monday? And I go, what? I don't know what you're talking about. They go, the guy who bombed the other day. I go, who bombed? I don't even know. What are you talking about? It was so funny.
That's great.
I was like, what are the odds? They recognize me.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, 1:45 in the morning.
Yeah,
You're
and I was in denial.
I
I stuck with the character. I didn't come out to be like, yeah, guys, it was me.
Have you ever brought that character back?
No.
Oh.
Sacha Baron Cohen did Bruno, and it was very similar to Bruno.
Oh, okay. So
and by the way, going back to what you were saying, my journey was to be more me,
right,
than doing a character. Like if I did a show where they said we're doing characters, I'd do some character, you know, because I also had done like a Middle Eastern version of that, some guy who's like, whatever, we are, and that guy would probably get more political because he'd be like, we got attacked by the Taliban in Afghanistan, and then we attacked Iraq. What's up with that? That kind of, I don't get it.
Yeah. No, it's funny when you do those rooms. I came up in, the urban circuit in New York, and, it was sink or swim. It was get funny fast. It was tough. There was sometimes, only I could count on one hand bad experiences, thank God. And they did bring me up like, yo, this dude is funny. That was nice. But sometimes when you first go in there, man, it is. But I watched Def Comedy Jam.
Oh yeah.
And I watched, for me, Eddie was my guy.
Eddie was
Raw,
my guy too, yeah.
It was probably Delirious for you, right?
Yeah, Delirious.
Yeah, and it was Raw for me because I was 10.
Yeah, you're younger.
9 or 10. That was for me.
Yeah.
But isn't it funny how when you're coming up, you have to do the most. I remember, dude, I drove from upstate New York to 125th Street in Harlem, Uptown Comedy Club, to do 6 minutes, no money. You get if it's not good, and I drove an hour and 25 minutes. I parked under a bridge, and I'm talking, and it is just 250 black audience members dressed to the nines.
Yeah,
dressed to the nines. That's one thing about the urban circuit.
Yeah,
they dress. It starts late, and they dress nice.
Yeah, it's an event.
Those were 2 things that happened, and they would be in suits, and they would be, and the women would be dressed, and it was just like. But then when they're like, man, you're funny. And you're like, oh, dude, you were so funny. Or like, you know, I remember one dude was in like an Iverson jersey. He had one jean leg up.
Yeah.
And he was looking at me like, you better be funny.
Oh, God.
And you just feel that. But then the way you feel on the way home.
Yeah.
And the way you feel like, I look at some of the things I did, some of the neighborhoods I was at, some of the scary things I did. My kids could never do it. Well, unless they absolutely had to, the way that I had to.
It goes back to what we were saying earlier. It's like, if you find that thing, then you do it. I tried being a salesman of certain things here and there. Like there was a thing early on coming out of college. There was like a long distance sales, long distance phone salesman thing.
I was phone, cable, internet, door to door.
Yeah, it was, and the thing was, it was like I think it was a pyramid scheme. So what you would do is you would sign up for it, and you go and get, and then the way the guy would present it to you is like, if you can get 10 people, you're gonna make this much a month, and this and that. So I was like, oh, let me try it. So like I bought the tools for a couple $100. I go to my mom, I'm like, hey, you want some long distance sales? And my mom's like, I'm good. And I was like, I can't even sell to my own mother. Like, why am I?
Yeah.
If I can't sell to my mother, who the hell am I gonna sell to? And I got discouraged like that. Right after that, I was like, I'm done.
Dude,
so that wasn't my thing, right?
Yeah.
But stand up, as you just said, when you show up in that room and you're just like in your head, you're like, oh God. First of all, one thing you realize is the more true you can be, the more honest you can be. Whether they're black, Latino, white, doesn't matter who they are, they're gonna laugh and they'll come around. Like they want to laugh. Ultimately, it's kind of like when people go into casting. A lot of people get intimidated by casting. They go, "Oh my God, they're against me." No, casting is for you. They want to find their Superman or whoever it is you're auditioning for. Same way, this audience wants you to be funny. Now, of course, there's gonna be somebody who's got an attitude who's like,
someone's an asshole. Yeah.
But if you go up there and you bring your authentic self, whatever that is, they're gonna go with you. You gotta get out of the intimidation out of your head, and they'll go with you.
Yes.
But regardless, we still, depending on the audience, you'll still like, black audiences notoriously are gonna be tough, but then when they come, they come. But so I was in front of an audience recently, and then once I got these black ladies laughing, I was like, oh, this is gonna be good.
Yeah.
But I used to do Latino rooms. It was like East LA, you'd go exactly what you just said, like $25 and get like a burrito dinner or something. And it was like, you get in there and it was like a club crowd with a bunch of, what's up, fool? Kind of like, like you did the cholo thing. There's like a little bit of cholo-y, and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna do jokes about the Iraq War here. Like I'm gonna get all intellectual.
I know.
Or I'm gonna learn to, rope-a-dope, do boob jokes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I always wonder about that. Like the other night when we were at the Improv, and I had such a great time, but I'm going like, hey, I'm in LA, and I know it, I'm going to do this abortion rally joke, and I'm going to do it, and it ended up being a hit.
Yeah.
But like, I know you see a room, and you're like, am I really, like, it's like 11 o'clock at night, am I going to, but it's like, no, you stick to your guns, you do what you make, because it's like you said, when they see when they see you're authentic, and they see you are being you, that's it. Now, I saw a clip of you, I want to talk about this, because I haven't talked about this on the show with a lot of people. I want to talk about our mothers.
Yeah.
I saw a clip of you and your mother was laughing at something sexual, and you're like, Mom, what the, you were sort of like, what the fuck is that, right?
Yeah.
My mom has been to a few of my shows. She was at my special Nocturnal.
Yeah.
She was at the first taping.
Yeah.
And the one thing, but my mom's religious, but the one thing, she goes, I love you, you're so funny, you're so talented. Can you just not curse as much? Or or I remember the first time I ever did TV, I did some like news split screen thing. And she just goes, I'm so proud of you, but I wouldn't wear a gray shirt.
That's so funny.
Because they're still your mother.
Yeah, they can't help themselves.
They're your mother, but has your mom seen you perform live?
My mom has been pretty good at not giving me feedback in any way. Like so early on, she didn't want me to do this at all. Like, because again, the culture we come from, lawyer, doctor, engineer, get a job, get your shit together. She used to do, I've talked about this on stage, it was a bit I did, but she actually said at one point, she's like, just be a lawyer and you could do jokes in court. Like, just throw some jokes out. There's a judge, there's a jury.
You could be a doctor. Just, when you're given a diagnosis, just slip
doctor.
in a fucking
Be like, you don't have cancer. And then they go, what? I go, I'm just kidding. You do have cancer.
But it's only stage one. We're going to knock this thing out.
That's not funny. It's dark humor. I'm going for that. So she never really gave me feedback in that sense. But listen, I feel like I had, going back to the psychology of it all.
Yeah.
I had to get over some stuff. Like, I just grew up with my mom saying, like, don't curse. We don't curse in our family. Be very polite, this and that. My dad, he, again, immigrant family. He gets a lawyer. His lawyer was this white dude up in the Bay Area. His name's John. They love to drink with each other. They're big drinkers. And
this is your father's lawyer.
My father's lawyer. My dad got into some like lawsuits and shit, but he became friends with the lawyer. So the lawyer would come over, and it's funny because I remember specifically they were at our house drinking, and my dad's like, all right, let's wrap it up, and they're drinking vodka, and the guy's like, one for the road, and my dad's like, one for the road, and then they take a shot, and they would sit there for a few minutes, and the guy's like, one for the road, one for the. And by the way, back then, like these guys were drunk driving for 100%. There was no like.
What years is this? 80s?
This is 80s, yeah.
Oh, no, 80s, there was no such thing as drink. It
was just one for the road. One for the road. And
I remember a friend said my dad would pack the family on a holiday in the 80s and just drive.
Yeah.
Because you're at it wasn't even a thought.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We would drive from Marin to Lake Tahoe along the way with a caravan of cars. Along the way, we'd pull over. My grandmother cooked Persian food in like pans and pots. She'd bring it all out. And my dad would have like vodka, big old vodka bottle. They'd sit on the side. They'd be drinking, playing cards on the way to go to Tahoe. Instead of going to like, let's go to a drive-through, it was like a...
You guys would pull over and like can't put your own little
over
picnic?
somewhere, get a little picnic together. Like, so like a 3-hour ride becomes like a 5-6 hour drive because they're sitting there, they're eating, they're drinking, they're taking naps. It's crazy. It was all.
That's cool.
So this guy would be like one for the road, and then like finally when the guy leaves, my dad's like, this fucking guy kept saying one for the road. He wouldn't leave. Like, I'm like, well, you're drinking too, dude. But it's funny.
I love he's blaming him.
Yeah. But yeah. So wait, how did we get to that story? We're talking about the.
We're talking about your mom.
Oh yeah, my mom. Yeah.
Your mom.
But the thing about that lawyer, he cussed like a sailor. I remember, and in my mind, I thought, oh, he's a lawyer. So I thought, oh, he's going to be, and I didn't know what a lawyer.
I thought he was going to be just proper professional.
I thought he'd be like, good to be, thanks for having me, whatever. But he'd be like, fuck this, fuck that, and I was like, whoa. I was like, and then I would look at my parents and be like, are they saying anything? And they weren't. They were just going with the flow. So I think somewhere in me was built this thing of like, don't curse. And early on in my act, you'll see there's not a lot of cursing happening, and it's not. I wasn't going like cheese and rice instead of Jesus Christ, or like
right.
Oh friggin', I would curse once in a while, but not a lot.
Yeah.
But as I went along, it was freeing. And I remember specifically one night I was at the Comedy Store Original Room, and my friend, whose mother, around my mom's age, she had come out with her friends to watch me.
Okay.
And my friend was like, oh, my mom's going to come with some friends. Sure, I got to set them up. And I'm doing my act, and I forget what happened. Just in my act, I start cursing a little bit. And then I was like, my friend's mom's here. I go, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. And they were laughing at it. And I was like, wow, there's something to that, like to going to that level. And now I do, because again, culturally speaking, Persians tend to be pretty formal. So if I say something that's a little too outlandish, I'll find someone in the audience who's a little older, and I'll be like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. That was, he made me do it because he was looking, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I have fun with it now.
Yeah.
And so with my mom too, I don't think I've ever seen, like she hasn't ever been like, don't say this, don't say that. That clip that you saw came off of me following. So my mom was there we have a family friend who's actually a queen of a country. Like she literally married a king. I swear to God, I'm not kidding. So this lady married the king of a country, was my mom's friend.
The queen's coming over.
And so the queen comes to the show with her assistant, with my mom, with some friends. I set them all up in that VIP booth area. And I'm going to follow Trevor Wallace, who's younger, very funny, mid-20s. What's he going to talk about? He's going to talk about, some sexual stuff, because that's just what that's what people in their 20s talk about.
Sure.
So he got into some bit that was pretty funny about like a girl wanted him to go down, but she had her vibrator there, and now he's down there. And he's feeling like intimidated by the vibrator because there's a vibrator. But he's like, how can I keep up with this? It's a funny bit.
Yeah.
But as he's doing it, I'm like, oh my God, my mom's here and the queen. I was like, this is like, ugh.
And they're laughing.
And so I look over at my mom, and my mom's laughing, and I'm like, and I'm thinking, is she getting what he's saying? Or is she just laughing because everyone else is laughing?
Yeah.
And I'm hoping it's the latter as opposed to the former. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So when I went up on stage, I brought it up because that was a great way to transition, to be like, guys, I was off stage. My mom's here. I also wanted to give her props for being there. And then I said, but when Trevor was doing that stuff about licking pussy in the vibrator. I go, look over, my mom's laughing, and I go,
it's so
I'm
great.
like, Mom, that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
That's
the beauty of comedy, though. Like even when they're there, it was nice when we were at the Improv the other night. A lot of your fans were there, and your fans dress up nice. There was that one family; they were in suits and everything.
Yeah.
And but it's nice when things just translate. It doesn't matter Persian culture. It doesn't matter Mediterranean culture. Family is family. Life is life. It's great.
And funny is funny. And we know, listen, it's all about how you set it up, right? So if you're in a room filled with Italians, you might say like, when you got the guman, and they're like, oh, they're right with you, right?
Yeah.
But if you're in a room that's divided, you turn to the white guy and go, we got a thing called the guman, which is the girlfriend on the side. You got to set it up for him. Now you take him on that journey, which is interesting to me because sometimes I'll have people like think that, oh, you have to be Persian to get the jokes from both the Persian side and the American, like non-Persian side. And I've had people hit me up and be like, listen, Persians, I'm gonna come to your show, but I have a friend of mine. He's not Persian. Will he understand the show? And I go, the show's in English.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, come. Yeah. Have you seen any of my act? And they're like, not really. I go, what? Or vice versa, where someone's like, because you also have some people who I think sometimes people aren't listening to all of what you're saying. They're kind of taking some of it. So I've had like white people I've seen in comments sometimes be like, there was a lot of like, you kind of got, there was a lot of ethnic stuff that I didn't get. And I'm like, no, if you watch it, I'm breaking it down for you. And there's some ethnic stuff, but then I'm going into like husband-wife stuff, going to kids stuff. There's, in an hour set, if there's like 15 minutes of, my family was like this because they're immigrants. Yeah. You should be able to understand that.
And I think even if you do some cultural stuff, if you're an intelligent audience member paying attention, you should be able to. You should definitely be able to get it.
Yeah.
Now, can you do in Iran? Can you do stand up or no?
No, because the government in Iran is called the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's a very autocratic government. They're very strict. Like last year there was protests because they killed this young lady named Masa Gina Amini. She was 22 years old, walking down the street. Her hair was out of her hijab a little bit. The morality, they have a thing called morality police, who stopped her, arrested her, and then proceeded to kill her. And it led to protests. God. Yeah, and so then in the protests, they killed a lot of people in the protests. It's a horrible government. It's highly religious, which worries me sometimes when I see people on the religious right here enforcing things. I don't care where you stand on abortion, whether you're pro or against. I do feel like a woman should have a right to choose. And so when you get a minority that's based in religion, imposing their religion and their morals on a majority, we end up in a situation like we have in Iran. And so I've been critical of that government.
Sure.
I've spoken out against them. And so it would be a situation where if I showed up in Iran, I'd probably be arrested. So I can't do shows in Iran. But I've done shows throughout the Middle East in front of other audiences that are
and that
non-Iranian.
Government knows you, right? Like I'm sure that government
I'm
knows
sure I'm somewhere on their radar. I'm sure I'm on the radar somewhere. I mean, it's like because
That's wild,
because let's face it, in the community, there's like, especially in America, there's not that many. There's only like stand-ups. There's only like 5 of us that are kind of known. But most of the people that are in the diaspora have spoken up against the government, and so. Yeah, you gotta be like you shouldn't go back because they
if
would.
you speak out against the government, you're just not going back.
If you go back, you'll be arrested and they'll call you a spy. Like there's been other they just released some prisoners. There's the way that they operate is they'll accuse you of, here we say innocent till proven guilty. Over there's guilty till you prove yourself innocent. And the way they would say you're guilty most likely is they would say you're a spy, and then you'd be like, I'm a spy for who? And then they'd be like, well, look at this comment you made on this thing. Here's a clip we have of you saying this. Here's another clip of this. Clearly you are a spy for, I don't know, the Americans, the Israelis, the somebody.
Right.
And here's our proof. Like, they had a guy, this guy's name is Maz Jobrani. My full name is Maz as well. This guy, Maz Jobrani, is a British journalist. He was a British journalist for the BBC. And so in Iran, every few years, big protests happen because people want this regime to go because they really are corrupt. Besides them being highly religious, they've also here's the problem with these types of governments. They come out and they promise wealth for all, and we're going to fix the system. Clearly, they don't know what they're doing. It's easy to complain. That's what I say. I always say, like, it's easy for me to sit there and be like, I pay too many taxes. There's too many potholes. The border's got problems. This, and you go, what's your solution? I don't know. Let's get someone else in. And then that other person who's promised they can do everything clearly they realized, quickly they realized they can't do everything. So what happened was in the revolution in 1979, when this government came in, they were like, oh, we're going to get rid of all the corruption and everyone who's poor is going to get theirs and we'll be good. Well, instead of that, they led the country into a couple of wars, into a war that lasted several years. Millions of people died, and they came out of it, and now they're fully corrupt. So the people who are running it, who are like the military, they are all very rich. They, even though they claim to be highly religious and believe in the country of Iran, they send a lot of their young kids and stuff to Europe, to Canada, to America to go live off the millions of dollars that they've embezzled from the country. So,
wow.
Yeah, so you have all that set up like that, and so, you know, if you're someone with half a conscience, you're going to be critical when they ask you to be, like, especially since I'm in the limelight. You know, I have a following on social media. I've been on.
Well, yeah, you're in the public eye.
Public eye, and so when you do that, so recently they had these guys that were. Oh, so this guy Maz Jobrani, I'll tell you real quickly. He was in Iran covering the protests of 2009 for the BBC, and he's covering for the BBC. And in the government claims the BBC, the British, all these people, they're all spies. So they arrest him. One thing that he'd done, this guy Maz Jobrani, while he was there, Jason Jones, who was a commentator on The Daily Show, had gone to cover the protests and has done it in a, you know how The Daily Show reporters are all kind of like, they kind of play buffoons.
Yes.
So he showed up, Jason Jones showed up in like a vest and like a Palestinian keffiyeh, which is that scarf that they wear. And he was like, I'm here in the Middle East and I want to blend in. But he kind of like was dressed like how a spy would dress. And then in this segment that he did, it was very funny because he was playing the stupid American, and he would like interview Iranians about their knowledge of America, and they knew so much more about America than Americans know about Iran. And then to get a translator for him, he got Maz Jobrani, the BBC journalist, to be a translator for him. And so when they arrest Maz Jobrani, one of the pieces of proof they had that he's a spy, they go, you're a spy. He goes, no, I'm not. They go, why are you translating for this guy who clearly in the clip says he's a spy? And Maz Jobrani goes, he's a correspondent for The Daily Show. And they go, yeah, but he says he's a spy. They go, so he goes, you think a spy would get on a comedy show and say he's a spy? They go, we got the proof. He says, so they basically were trying to tell him, you're a spy. Here's our proof. You were on The Daily Show.
Which is a comedy.
Yeah. And the whole thing was they kept him for a long time. And then he comes out, writes a book. Jon Stewart ends up directing it as a movie. But it was just like, it was crazy.
But he's okay.
He's out now, but the point is,
yeah,
they say you're a spy till you prove you're not a spy, and sometimes their proof is the silliest. Like they might take, if I go back, they'll take a clip from this, and they'll be like, there you are, telling Paul Virzi you're not a spy, but clearly we know you are a spy.
Wow. So wasn't there a girl that danced on TikTok that was killed, or?
There was a poor girl. So part of those protests, what happened was last year's protests were probably the most active within the diaspora as well as inside.
Yeah.
And so there was a handful of, like, I think they killed something like 500 people, like shot them. They arrested, 10,000-20,000 that are still in this political prison. And the girl that was killed, this poor girl, she was, I believe that was Nika was her name, and she had, there's videos of hers, like she's 15 or something. She's singing with her friends, just doing like a karaoke thing. She goes out to protest. I don't even know if she was at the protest or on her way or what, but what they have is they have these thugs that show up and they just shoot, into the crowds.
Jeez.
And this poor girl's life was cut short because of that. So, we're far away from there. I grew up in America since I was 6 years old. So for 45 years, I've been in America. But I would say that there is a deep trauma that exists within people from Iran,
sure,
which I'm sure is the same for like immigrants that had to flee Syria or Cuba or whatever. Yep. When you see them get so heated and so angry at the Islamic Republic, at that government, is because of the trauma they've seen for 45 years, where people have been imprisoned, they've been killed, the corruption that goes on, and so yeah, when that happened, like, all of a sudden my Instagram page became a political activist page as opposed to a stand-up comedy page. And I had to be that because it's like the community is going through it and I got to go through it with them. And then you go back to, you get people whose opinions, like some people were telling me, stop doing your comedy shows. How could you do comedy in a time like this? And I said, well, I'm using my stage to take a moment in my shows to tell my American audience about what's going on because they don't know what's going on.
Sure.
So I said, you're short-sighted in the way you're acting. Number one, I said, listen, it's my job. I need to pay my bills. So if you don't want me to do this, then you don't go to work. Let's nobody go to work, number one. Number two, this is an opportunity for me to use my any kind of presence I have to spread the word. So it was another tough several months for us as performers from that background, where a lot of my American friends didn't have any idea about it.
Sure.
But we had to do it, and I don't regret doing any of it.
Now, has there ever been a comedy show in Iran?
So there's stand-up comics. So I think what happened was, so I started doing stand-up comedy in '99. There's a comedian in England named Omid Jalili. He's Iranian British. He started stand-up like right around that time, maybe a little bit before me.
My first open mic was '99, but then I couldn't in New York. You couldn't really get up. But go ahead,
Yeah. So Omid was doing it. I was doing it, and then shortly thereafter, Maximini came in, and now there's a handful. Amir K, Tehran. There's others. But I think at some point while we started doing it, and once social media started with YouTube and clips started circulating, I think the people in Iran realized, oh, we should do this. And it used to be, before I did that, there used to be comedians, but what they would do is, like there's tapes of back in the day, these guys would tell jokes, like, a guy goes into a bar and then do like
they would do like a street joke.
Yeah, street joke. He would do the joke, and then a song would play, and then he would do the next joke. So it was like a tape of this guy doing joke after joke after joke. That was the tape that was put out. And until we started doing stand-up, and we obviously came from the format of American Western comedy, which is talk about your life. Yeah. So we were the first ones to get up on stage, start talking about our lives. Yeah. And then I think those in Iran realized, oh, we can do this. So now there are a handful of Iranian comedians who do that. They go up on stage and they talk about their lives, but they have to work under different circumstances. Like they can't go up there. I can go on stage tonight and be like, Joe Biden, this, that, Trump, this, that. I can talk about whatever I want. Right? They can't go up there and be like, oh, the supreme leader, this and that. They got to find, and then sometimes they find very, when you limit them, they come up with creative ways of criticizing. But if anybody realizes that
they could read through it, they might be able to read through it. Now, can they talk about like intimacy with their wives and sex stuff or no?
Again, it's limited, right? So here's the thing. So the closest I've come to having to perform there, number one is like when they tell you do a TV friendly set, TV clean, right? Now, I've gone to the Middle East and done shows all over the Middle East, from Dubai to Doha to Egypt to Saudi, all over. And usually when you would show up, they would tell you, no sex, no religion, no politics. And you'd be like, well, then hello, good night, But you realize when they say no sex.
Turn the plane around.
Turn around. Here's your money. I got nothing. So you realize when they say no sex, it means like there might be kids in the audience, keep it relatively clean. Right. No religion means just don't do religion. And then politics means don't do local politics. So you could be in Saudi talking about the politics of another country, but they don't want you to talk about their leadership.
So if I'm making fun of Biden, I can do that in Dubai.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I can't talk about the government in Dubai.
Dubai and Dubai.
Right.
Now, but I'll tell you, I've been going there since we went with the Axis of Evil comedy tour in 2007.
That's such a great name.
Yeah, it was great. We had a great time. It was me, Ahmed, Aaron Cater, Dino Bidala. But I just went back this past spring for the first time after several years. I hadn't been in Egypt, for example, like for 10 years or so. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know I was like, what should I do? What should I not do? And up until like the day of, I got the email the day of the show from my manager's assistant saying, the promoter has asked that we send you this. It says, please refrain from any sexual, religious, or political jokes. And I was like, a little too late, buddy.
Yeah.
And I said, because the act I was doing was the act I'd been doing in America coming out of COVID and all that stuff. So there was some sex and religion and stuff, but I was sex and politics, but there wasn't much religion. Anyway, I decided to do it with the motherfuckers. Like, here's a joke I do that I'll tell you how it doesn't play as well. I do a joke about how when you're in a multi-ethnic relationship, when it comes time to name your kids, there's a negotiation that happens. You got to compromise. And I said the first time this ever came to me was there was a Mexican guy in the audience with his Swedish wife. And I said to him, you ever have a boy, the Mexican guy is going to want to name him Jose. Swedish girl is going to want to name him Ikea. You guys are going to negotiate Hoskia, right? Right? So I set up like that. So I go, so I'm Iranian, my wife's Indian. I go, so when I went to my wife, I started with a nice Persian Muslim name. I knew it was going to be a negotiation. So I went up to her and said, hey, how about Mahmoud? And then it was negotiation. She came back. She goes, how about go fuck yourself? So now if I can't say go fuck yourself, I got to go, how about go screw yourself?
Right.
That doesn't play as funny.
That's not going to hit the way you want it to hit.
As your wife saying go fuck yourself is great. And that's the joke's on you, right? Is stronger than go screw yourself or whatever. So I was in Egypt. I had to make a decision. I go, you know what? I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to do all the fucks. I'm going to do all the motherfuckers, whatever it is. And the crowd was laughing and enjoying it. And I realized they want that. Nowadays, they see everything. They've seen it. Yeah. And, maybe... the promoter was like, I think we'll be fine. He goes, maybe
it's like refreshing maybe for them.
Yeah. And I did it also in Kuwait. And I'd been in Kuwait maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and they'd asked me to do the clean version. And when I went back to Kuwait and did this dirty version of a new act, but with cursing, some guy actually messaged me on socials and goes, I'm so happy you didn't pull any punches for us, because they also don't want to be babied. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. It's like a night out of refreshing things that they don't really get to see.
Yeah.
And then if they see you travel there and kind of just do something that they know is censored, and they know that you have to mask it, or they know you need to try clever, then it's like, but now they leave going, oh, Mozzie didn't let anything. He didn't hold back. That was a great, like, they get their money's worth. It's really interesting. It's sad that it has to be like that some places, and hopefully in the future it gets better. But it also lets you know, like, how as much as we do complain about woke, and as much as we do complain about cancer culture, we can go up. Now, listen, doesn't mean the crowd's going to love it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that somebody woke is going to not be a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But at least we can go up there, and we don't have to fear for being in a fucking prison or our lives. And that's like a crazy thing to say. But
well, dude, I would always say, when people say "Make America Great Again," first of all, that came from Ronald Reagan back in the day. But when they say "Make America Great Again," I would say you should travel. Just travel. Go see any other country and just drive around a little bit and see how they're living. America is great. Do we have problems? Of course we have problems. Do we have poor people, we have homeless issues? Of course. There's a lot of problems, a lot of issues, and I'm willing and able to talk to you about solutions. Let's come up with it. The immigration system is broken. Let's come up with a solution. Let's figure it out. But when you say, like, make America the way, what do you want it to be, the way it was in the 50s? What are you saying when you say make America great again? And you have no perspective of your comparison. I was with my family. We went to Colombia for spring break, and we ended up at some like nice resort. Great resort, food, swimming, surfing, On the way back, on the way there, they picked us up at Cartagena, and they took us with a boat to this place called Las Islas. On the way back, instead of going back with a boat, we said, let's go back, just drive us back. So as they're driving, as soon as you come off the resort, it's like, buildings with open holes with like a kid, 5 kids running around and some old dudes sitting there all like in the sun melting. And like, I'm like, this place must be, they're total poverty.
Yeah.
And you realize, you go, wow, we have something here.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what you said similarly with performing elsewhere. It's like the freedom to say whatever you want.
Dude, one of the things that sticks with me, that it really sticks with me, is I had an Uber driver that, and he was from Syria.
Yeah.
He looked Irish. It was weird, but he was like he was light.
There's a lot of light skin. Yeah.
He was a very light skinned guy from Syria, and he said the reason why he was able to be here was because he married the wife. Was a citizen here. They have 2 kids. And we just got to talking. He was taking me to the train, and he goes, this country, he's shaking his head, and he goes, people don't know what they have in this country. And he said, I come from a place where if you speak against anything, you'll be stoned, you'll be in prison the rest of your life, or tortured and then killed.
Yeah. He
said, bombs are going off everywhere.
Yeah.
He said, I'm blessed to be here because my wife and our 2 kids. And I'll never forget, he gave me this look, Ma. He gave this look, like he just was looking, and he shook his head, and he just goes, people don't know what they have here in this country. People are unappreciative. And he said, and then he just goes, the media, not so good here.
Yeah.
And he goes, people don't understand like the absolute, because people don't have to run from missiles.
Absolutely.
People don't get stoned. But we don't,
Yeah.
Was your coffee too hot at Starbucks? You know what I mean? It's like, so when you really put it into perspective, and as corny and cliche as it sounds, if you don't have the gratitude for where you are, if you don't realize where you are, and look, you're the prime example. I mean, you came here, all the stuff that you saw, went through, and now you're here telling jokes.
Yeah.
On
making a living doing it.
In Hollywood, acting and saying whatever you want.
Yeah.
And it's so opposite of what you can do.
Dude, that's why whenever there's any anti-immigrant sentiment, it really upsets me, because I go, I'm an immigrant. and I go, there's most immigrants that come here do appreciate or want a better life. They're running away from gangs and war and whatever it is. And the way that anti-immigrant sentiment gets sold is they say drug dealers, they're all drug dealers. They're sending us their worst. They're drug dealers. I go, listen, dude, whether you put a wall or don't put a wall, drug dealers, their whole point is to get the shit in somehow. So they'll dig a tunnel, they'll get it in. They're illegal. They'll figure it out. They make a fake passport, they'll get in. All right.
Right.
A lot of some of the worst contraband that's getting in isn't getting in through the border. It's getting in through airports with like people smuggling it in from like China and all these other places. So the anti-immigrant sentiment really upsets me, and I try to remind people, like, people say, oh, I go, the biggest threat to Americans are Americans. We're shooting each other all the time. These immigrants that come over here going like, where's the job? What do I got to clean? What do I got to pick? Let me go. Let me do this, right?
Yeah.
And I think that part of the solution would have to be to find ways to help those that are coming here, like you said, who are appreciating it, who want a better life for their kids. Because if you really break it down, whether you're right or you're left or whatever you are, we all, end of the day, want, some health for ourselves, some money to feed ourselves, and then our family. So these kids, this guy who's coming from Syria or from Honduras or wherever they're coming from, they, if there's an organization that says to them, hey, I'm going to take your kid and educate them, and your kid is going to end up being a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever, that parent is going to be like, holy shit, I love this country and I will appreciate this country. And they have a perspective that, like you said, most Americans don't. I think a great program would be to, and this is something we barely have money for schools, but a great program would be a program that sends kids abroad, like every junior, whatever it is, or whatever that year is that we feel is the right year. Every kid should go to some country and live for 6 months or a year and look around and come back and be like, yo, I'm getting a job. I'm getting my shit together. I'm going to stop bitching.
Send a couple kids to Syria.
Send a couple kids to Syria. Study abroad. Study abroad in Syria, brother. Study abroad. That's a good bit.
Dude, that's a good bit. Yeah, just send a couple kids to just like where all these people are getting.
Syria.
Yeah, rockets flying up the street. Okay, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
Look, I know if I lived if I wasn't in America, I would do everything in my power to get my family here.
Absolutely, or anywhere in the West that where you go, wow, there's some stability.
And I'm Sicilian. I would do it illegally.
Yeah, of course.
Like I would throw them over. I would do whatever the fuck it is I got to do to get here. I would do it.
That's where you got to realize, like, it pisses me off so much when I see some of these politicians that are like talking, there's no sympathy. You got to have, listen, again, I understand, like we saw it now with the mayor of New York, where he goes, wow, they sent all of these immigrants to New York and we can't handle it numbers wise. Okay, now we're talking logistics. Now we're talking, let's figure out some system to bring these people and take care. Let's figure all that out.
Right. Because if you're overpopulated, then it just doesn't work for anybody.
Yeah, I get it.
Right.
Let's figure something out. Let's have New York talk to Texas and Florida, wherever they're coming from. We're all in the same country. Let's figure it out. But also, let's have sympathy in that press conference to go, listen, I get it. These people are coming, this, that, the other. Currently, our system can't handle it. So we're going to look into how we can it's a broken system, and nobody wants to fix it because it's all politics. Everyone's trying to because it's easy to go, Paul, you know what your problem is? It's not that you can't work. It's not technology. Technology didn't take your work. The immigrants took your work. It's a lot easier to say that. But the truth is technology took your work. Because the truth is when I go out of a parking lot now, there's not a guy there going like, oh, let me, it's $5. No, it's just a little thing. I put my ticket in. I get the card. If there's 4 lanes, that's 4 jobs that are taken right there. Yeah. When I go through the toll, it's just I don't even slow down anymore. I just keep going.
Well, speaking of I know. But speaking of the mayor of New York, dude, like they just unveiled like a robot cop.
Yeah.
They unveiled like this robot cop, and you're just going like, well, when is that gonna, like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean for 10 years from now?
Yeah.
Like, are they gonna make them better? Are they gonna make them on foot? Are they gonna be, are we getting to the Terminator here?
Yeah.
Is this turning into like, is it gonna be like man versus robot? I know it sounds nuts, but like, it's scary. Like when you see like, they can roll and flip.
Yeah.
They like roll and flip.
And it's going to be really hard to talk your way out of anything, like you go, come on. It's like, I cannot.
Dude, it's a little weed. Weed. Like that weed is legal now, but dude, come on,
I'm
man.
5 minutes it's late. The parking meter, it just expired.
You can't even use can't even use whatever little celebrity we have. No, dude, I'm a comic. I'm going to the
submitted already. You know, pretty soon maybe those robots will be able to like do your court date right there. You know what I'm saying? Would you like to challenge it? You go, yes. All right. You know,
at least they can't take our comedy. I don't think that the one thing.
I hope not.
No, they can't take our acts.
Not until it won't happen in our lifetimes. It won't happen that fast. I mean, AI's coming through.
I just pictured a robot in a suit doing Seinfeld.
Oh yeah. What's up with that?
What's the deal?
You know, the AI is interesting because we know there's going to be some comic who, because you know we talked about this a little bit that night when we were at the Improv. What's great, and I enjoy talking to you, is that our lives don't only revolve around the career. There's family. There's
of course
other stuff. You talk about a lot of stuff, but you know there's going to be some comic who's going to be so desperate for their next career move that they will end up doing, like, using a lot of AI, and it'll come out that like their whole thing was written by AI. Like without them, it's one thing for the comic to be like, I decided to do this set and had AI write my set. I'm going to do it. Yeah, you know, that's one thing. But for it's going to come out that someone's doing a lot of AI. You know,
who's going to be the first?
Who's going to be the first?
Yeah, because we're going to hear about it. It's going to be all.
Yeah, you don't have to steal anymore. You just basically stolen. Stolen for you.
Yeah, the whole act. Maz, I could talk to you forever, man. Because you're such a, and I told you about this. You know, regardless of you're one of those guys. Regardless of your politics, you're just You're fair, and yours is all based on experience and the things that you've seen, and you know, such a great comic, a true pro. Plug everything that you have.
Yeah, I'm on tour. People can find my dates, mazjobrani.com. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but I'm going to be
couple weeks.
So I'll be in Philly. I'll be in Miami. I'm going to be in Richfield.
Richfield
town.
Playhouse, yeah.
Yeah, Playhouse. I'm doing in early November, the Kennedy Center. In DC, Atlanta, I'm all over the place. LA. So anybody's in any of these cities, I'll be in New York doing town hall in January.
Oh, nice.
Or February. So they go to mazjobrani.com. I'm at Maz Jobrani on TikTok, on Instagram. I got a Netflix special, YouTube special. It's really hard to, if you just put MazJobrani, it all comes up. Find it. Come see a live show. We'll have a good time.
I couldn't imagine a lot of comedians Maz, right?
There just aren't that many.
They're not that many. You will definitely find him, guys. And again, guys, check out my podcast. Obviously, with the All Things Comedy Network, me and Bill Burr do the Anything Better podcast, which right now we are doing our NFL games. If you want to jump in on that, you just use the code BURR200 for the code that we have, and you download the app. $10 in, they'll give you up to $200. Please bet responsibly. You'll get to $200 regardless of the outcome of your first bet. And they do the survivor pool. You could pick the games each week, and as long as your team wins, you stay in it. So please check that out. Also, me and Bobby Kelly have the Bone to Pick podcast. You could get full episodes of the Virzi Effect everywhere you get your podcast, iTunes, Spotify. I put the full episodes on YouTube. Check me out. Philadelphia, October 20th, 21st at Helium. And I will be November 2nd at the Funny Bone in Albany. I'm going to be in Gramercy Theater, New York City, and a bunch more dates are coming on. Go to paulvirzi.com, and I will see you next week.